Hey, everybody, welcome to the Unconventional Therapist Guide to Nothing. My name is Dave, and I'm joined here with Greg. Look at that face. No one could love you.
Hunnam. Dave, I had a critique. A friend reached out and and felt the need to critique the podcast
Really? Just now?
on a personal level. Didn't want to leave a review, didn't want to do anything like that, just critique. And he said, and maybe we approach this episode like this just to try it out. He said we grab a topic and instead of teaching it, he what he would want to hear is two therapists choosing a topic and having a conversation about it, with the assumption that like everyone kind of knows a little bit about it, everyone kind of understands it a little bit, and we can just kind of he's like, I want to be listening in on a conversation. And I was like, I thought that's what it was, but apparently not. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean,
Harsh? Pete?
it's, some topics it feels like that's what we're doing, and
Mhm.
some it does feel like we're teaching. So I get that critique for sure. There's certain topics we're more comfortable with. There's certain topics that I know that nobody knows about, right?
Mhm.
Like cognito hazard.
Like, well, we certainly didn't, right?
We didn't even know. So we had to learn and then we taught. But then I think we tried to balance it with some discussion. But it probably came on and like probably a lot of the the therapy models and also like the diagnoses probably come off that way, which is why maybe we need two parters to some topics. If we had to teach a full episode, then maybe the second one should be more a conversation piece about it.
Yeah.
I think
Ooh.
this is a little bit of a is going to be a little bit of a balance because I think people know what this topic is, which is shame.
Mhm.
Um, which I tried to shame you at the beginning, but you totally glossed over it because Greg can't be shamed. He has no shame. Um, but I think people will know what it is. I don't think they know the overall impact that it has because I think it's a topic that's like it's interesting. I wouldn't say normalized,
Mhm.
but like we all know what it is, but I don't think we think of it as dangerous as I think it might be. And the
Well,
more I
here's the
was
thing.
looking at it, the more I was like, wow, this is actually a really dangerous thing. And I think it really exists a lot more than I even give it credit for.
Well, it's we'll get into this, but it's evolutionary. I won't dive into that, but I can really
You
kind of see
will
how that
because
would
it's
happen. But what's funny is on the surface, when I think most people would agree, shame feels like a negative emotion, right?
yeah,
Okay.
it is in our outline too, how it's evolutionary, just so you know.
Okay, good. So let me say this. You just said something, oh, Greg has no shame. Um, that may be true. But here's the thing. That's an insult,
I
right?
know that can be
So that's
shameful.
that's the funny thing where it's like it's this we think of it as a negative connotation, but yet if we don't have it, that's negative. So on some level, if I'm doing my math right, that's a double negative and it must be a positive
Yeah,
emotion.
because we're supposed to have some level of what's the word? Reserve, right?
Mm,
We're supposed to be able to like keep ourselves in check. We're supposed to have chill. If we have no chill, we are out of control,
mm,
right? And shame's kind of
that's
the
right.
same thing. I heard somebody frame though the way that we're going to talk about shame in a more like impactful version of it. I heard somebody frame it as toxic shame, and I was like, do we have to use the word toxic
Do we have to do this?
everything? Like I get it. Like toxic is a really strong word, and I think everyone knows what toxic means in today's society. It's such
Mm.
like a pop culture word, but it's like it's getting a little
It's
redundant.
getting a little concept creep. If you love that idea, we have an
Yeah,
episode about that where like the word you're destroying what the word's supposed to mean. Toxic is supposed to be really bad, like really dangerous.
yeah, yeah, and it just feels like we label everything as toxic now, so it's losing some of its effectiveness. I think.
Yeah, like maybe some of my exes would probably say that dude is toxic. But the day before it ended, maybe I wasn't.
Right.
Maybe you're toxic. Okay, I don't I
Maybe
see.
you're
We didn't need to
toxic.
do that.
All
Maybe
right.
I am toxic. I don't know. Or maybe, right? What's toxic for someone could be someone else's medicine.
Well, it's funny
Um,
because there are people who openly admit, "Hey, I just like toxic relationships,"
mhm.
right?
That's
Or
love
yeah,
it. which means it's not toxic for them.
Yeah, for them, it's
Interesting.
what they need.
Yeah, exactly. It's tonic.
Yeah,
We don't use that word enough. You know what
right,
I'm
right.
saying? So, all right, shame. So shame is obviously an emotion, and that takes a negative self-evaluation so far that you believe that something is wrong with you as a person. So it could be disappointment in yourself. You've not met certain expectations or standards within your group, and so you kind of feel like unworthy, which is a really crappy feeling. Inadequate. Um, Man, that's a really like feeling unworthy or inadequate. That's or unlovable. Those are
Mm,
really kind of terrible feelings. So shame often operates outside of our conscious awareness. We feel it, and we're not always sure why. Um, and so it's kind of hard to identify it if you're not really sure where it's coming from. And it's also hard to overcome because it's an emotion, and emotions are useful for they're all useful. They're all kind of important in their own way, but it's important to challenge them and make sure that you're feeling them for the right reasons, right?
yeah,
Dave, I have a question before. I know you're
go
about to
ahead.
say something smart,
Yeah,
but I do have a question for you because often thought like, because this is your pick, so I'll put you on. If someone wants to blame me for something, they can blame me for Aesop. But this is my pick. I mean, your pick, and I almost think like, what's the fun side of shame?
what's that?
Embarrassment.
There's a difference.
Okay, are we gonna talk about that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, cool. Because I like embarrassment.
Yeah, so shame is not embarrassment, actually.
Okay.
Shame is different. And we'll get into that. And I was going to say, in today's, for like maybe the past like 2 decades, I feel, well, and it's probably existed for way longer than that now that I think about it. But because of social media, and, the internet and our connectivity to so many people, we have ways of shaming ourselves. We almost voluntarily do it. I
Hmm.
think back to this website. I don't know if you remember this from like our college days. Hot or Not, people
Yeah.
would put
I
photos of
sadly do remember
themselves.
that. Yeah.
People would put photos of themselves and other people would rate them. And it's like perfect strangers. And imagine you put up your photo and you get like a 3 out of 10 stars
Mm.
or whatever it was. I can't remember. Uh, it's like, wow, why would you volunteer to do that? You have to have a level of self confidence to feel good, or maybe you were just curious. But like, you almost are looking to shame yourself if
Hmm.
you put up a photo and you don't have anything to go off of to tell you what that score would be.
Yeah, shaming yourself can be like endearing too, though, right? Like, isn't it like what do you call that kind of like self-deprecation, right?
Yeah.
So that's a part of shame that I think's like using it as a tool to kind of ingratiate yourself with
But
others. Like, look, I'm
but think
bald.
about this. Think about this though. Think about how that manifests if it's too much or if it's not
Mhm.
taken in the way like you're talking about, like a positive reframe that someone can do or how they can maybe own it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But then
owning it. Eight
think about
Mile style,
if they
right?
don't though. And it's just like, or if there's already some messages sent earlier. So like thinking about causes, there's like so many different reasons that shame can exist, but somehow there was an event or events that someone compares themselves to the standards of others. So like let's say we're on that website and we have a friend that's also on that
Whoa,
website and they
website.
get
No, I'm
like
just kidding.
they get like an 8 out of 10 and you get a 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
You are going to feel like, wow, I feel very inadequate, right?
Mhm.
Or there's something wrong with my looks. And let's say there's already been messages sent that you kind of internalized when you were younger. Think about how that manifests, how it compounds on each other, and how it starts to build this new viewpoint of yourself. Um, it's also believed that shame can often result from a sense of judgment or ridicule from those deemed more powerful than themselves, such as like parents, coaches, teachers, or even partners. For example, like feeling disgust, failure, or contempt from a parent that then results in a lack of affection, love, or attention as a child could result in feelings of shame. And
Yeah.
now then I start to think about, well, like then think about how future adult situations that almost replicate that or have similar themes. It's kind of like the idea of like core beliefs. We talk about core beliefs. This thing happens, you get a core belief about something, and then think like you just look through the world for things that affirm that belief, and it becomes stronger and stronger until it becomes like a reality. So
Yeah.
like if the world's evil, you always look for things that are evil in the world, and then those things all compound onto this core belief, and now that's your new reality. Same can be true, I think, for shame, right? If you get this feeling of shame, if like you do something wrong and a parent at a young age looks at you and says you're a disgusting person and walks away from you, and you have shame anytime something that's similar happens, or you just have maybe not even remotely similar, maybe they feel very disconnected but they tap into similar feelings, it just continues to build and compound. And think about
Hmm.
what that does to a person's self-worth,
Right. And they start to
because they're not,
believe that themselves.
yeah, kids aren't reframing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A young kid
Yeah, yeah,
isn't
yeah.
like, well, they're just disappointed in me right now, but all like
Mom's
typically they
having
think
a
they're
tough
also,
day. Mom had
yeah.
a tough upbringing. Mom
Right,
doesn't know how to, yeah, no, all that. And listen, there's another like level of this too. Listen, I know that I say this sometimes, but I did just read an article, and
oh
it's
jeez.
I did. I did. And it's this really interesting thing. So you know how in corporate structure we used to think like the CEO or the huge decision makers that would make constant decisions, they would be at most at risk for like heart attack and like stress and not be like sort of on the happiness scale. It's like almost they're giving something up, giving some happiness up for like success. We That's kind of like the standard wisdom that we've had with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it turns out they did this 20-year study, and the people who are lower in management, like low management, um, and the lower the worse, and then going up all the way up, it's like the top people actually have the best sort of health and everything like that because they don't have as much, they're not living with as much shame, they're not living with as much doubt, they're not living with as much like they feel like they have agency and they feel like people around them respect them and think highly of them. And that makes their, and just be now that their lives are maybe they're more pressure, but somehow they're doing a lot better because people look at them differently. People, they're not shamed. They're not ashamed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
shame can be like detrimental to your health too.
I strongly believe it.
That sucks
Yeah.
because it's not really something that you're choosing, right?
Right.
Let's talk about I think this is important to distinguish here, right? The differences. So, one being the difference between shame and guilt.
Yeah.
It's an important distinction, I think.
Yes.
So, guilt comes as a reaction to taking or not taking action, particularly if the situation resulted in going against their core values. So, this goes into the thing where, I'm thinking like of a bully situation. You might feel some guilt if you see someone
Right.
mistreating someone and you don't do anything about it, or not just you don't do anything about it, like you just ignore it and feel like completely, which is like kind of messed up too, but
And
hard to do.
right. And here's the thing. The reason why the core values piece is added in there is it has to be a core value of yours, because like, let's say two people are viewing the same thing
Mhm.
and one person's like, it's a value of theirs to, to help others and not allow people to be mistreated. And the other person that's not their core value, right?
Mhm.
They're not going to walk away with feeling shame. They're going to be like, I'm glad I stayed out of that one, while
Mhm.
the other person's going to be like, I should have stepped in. I failed. I was so wrong of me. um so it's totally different. But that's for guilt, though. That's not for shame. That's like, I feel bad about not stepping
Right,
in, right?
right. It's
Yeah.
almost like something we don't talk about enough. It's an opportunity, right? Like with these moral dilemmas where you have to violate a value, and then maybe on the other side of it, violate a value to a different degree. Like maybe maybe one of your values is like, I don't like to meddle in other people's business. And then your other
Yeah.
value
Yeah.
is, I don't like to, like, this person's really being mistreated. And my value is to kind of defend, right?
Right.
So like, it's like you have this real sort of moral dilemma there. And I think guilt comes from violating your values in that sense where that's why, like, honestly, not my advice, best advice I ever got, be someone you admire. It's useful, it served me well. And sometimes you might end up with some shame or something we'll talk about in a second here, embarrassment. But I think it's better than guilt.
Yeah. So the thing with guilt though is like if I don't step in that situation, that guilt is going to feel so badly that the next time, most likely I will, right? Or I'll have a stronger motivation to do something to get involved in it or take the action that I wish I had done the previous time, right?
Which is super interesting because it's another negative emotion that used in a positive sense. So like you can see why we like our sort of DNA selected for guilt and we still continue to have guilt because you're right. That next time that situation presents itself, if it does, because I mean, you can't really seek it out. It has to be sort of authentic. You will hopefully act different. If not, you're going to be in a really worse place,
Right.
you know?
So how does shame differ from that guilt?
Because shame comes as a result of a negative evaluation or judgment from other people, not like from yourself. It's not like this internal thing. It's like you sense, um,
So in that scenario, it would be like other people saying, "Wow, you're a piece of shit for
yeah, dude,
not
what a piece of
stepping in."
shit. And you're like, damn,
I am.
yeah.
I really am.
So rather than feel bad about an action, right? It's more about feeling bad about themselves altogether as a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like you
Wow.
it's
What
deeper.
kind of person wouldn't step in and
Yeah.
help that kid being bullied? Wow, that's a real terrible
And
person.
the danger of shame there is it's making you less likely to act next time.
Right. You're next time you're just not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
You're going to like try to not be seen and sneak away as quietly as possible so nobody says anything to you next time.
So if you think about like that person in that scenario, if you can all use your little brains there, right? Like if you're shameful, you're gonna be like smaller and kind of like try to squeak by in the hallway because I'm I guess I was bullied because I'm like imagining that my brain keeps going there, and like you're gonna slink by like oh small or right. You kind of like take this bigger like take like get bigger and wider and like take this put yourself out there which is the opposite of shame and guilt. It's like I don't know what would be the opposite. Like pride is dangerous, but like um I don't know. So everyone's probably yelling at the screen, but like
I don't
just
know. Anger?
authenticity, like
Yeah.
empowerment, something, right?
Right.
But so I think we kind of like really so shame. I mean, guilt is like you could have taken an action and you feel crappy
Yeah,
about yourself.
it's a negative reaction to reflecting on your core
Inaction.
values and
Yeah,
your
yeah.
inability to act on them. Yeah.
Okay, so let's now talk about the difference between shame and embarrassment, which is embarrassment is like funny to me. Is that the kind of what comes out with you when you say the word
No,
embarrassment?
I
Oh
hate
boy,
embarrassment. I hate embarrassment. It's
man.
something I feel like I've been embarrassed too many times.
I bet. Well, could you share like one embarrassment?
I mean, it can be from, yeah. I mean, just sometimes I'm trying to think of a good example. Oh, this is this stupid one as a kid that stuck with me, and it's the dumbest thing, but I felt so stupid when I left. I was at like an amusement park, and it was going in like bumper boats. I think I was going into,
Yeah.
and the person putting us in the boats as a kid, I was like, "Hey, where are you from? What state you from?" And I said, "The United States of America." And then I got into the boat, and then I'm like, "Yeah, I'm so dumb."
Yeah, you're like driving a little bumper boat and you're like, I'm such an idiot. What the
Because as a
hell?
kid,
United
I
States
mean,
of
like,
America?
I guess even now, like if I ever had to like answer a question to a stranger or I was put on the spot, I would just freeze. I would get very self-conscious. Even if I had to go up and like say my name, like if you had to check in. Like I remember going
Mhm.
to like the Boys and Girls Club and having to check in for like picking our basketball teams or whatever. And it's like going up and having to say my name. I would think about how I was gonna say it like for so long before I'd actually get up there. I felt like a robot almost.
Dave, I don't know if I've ever shared this story, but it's so crazy that it's coming up to me in my mind because it's from a child. It's like a childhood story. We were at Good Fortune, my favorite Chinese restaurant, and it doesn't exist anymore. And there was this like, I was probably 9, 10, and there was this like young waitress, and I thought we used to go there all the time, and I was like, I thought she was so pretty. Like I had like a little
Mm-hmm.
infatuation with her. And so my father, who's this gruff, who as this very gruff like individual, you can imagine him 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, getting close to 40 years ago. So, you know, he is like, I'm like, Dad, I gotta go to the bathroom. Can you scoot out a little bit? And my dad's like, I don't, no, I don't scoot out. And he's like, he just grabs me and he picks me up. So you can imagine, it's like, so we're sitting side by side in a booth, and he picks me up like to kind of like lift me like over the table and then put me on the ground like next to him so I can like walk off, scamper off to the
Yeah.
bathroom. But what happened was, so he's picking me up and I'm, you're at a booth and my, my waist is against the table and my belt clips the table and pulls my pants down from like a frontal pants down in front of the whole restaurant. And I'm like, and there's the waitress, right? That was devastating. And that came right to my mind when you started telling. I'm like, this guy's talking about fucking not being able to name states. Dude,
Yeah. That's pretty
that
bad.
happened to me.
Yeah,
That's a
underwear
tough
on.
one.
Tidy whities.
Yeah, tidy whities. Hopefully that was, hopefully everything kind of snapped back into place
Oh
quick,
boy.
right? It was a frantic
Wow.
moment.
That's amazing.
hmm Yeah.
That is
Anyways,
amazing.
so embarrassment typically comes from obviously a very specific event or situation, tripping while walking in front of people, that can be embarrassing. Um, you know, recently, I don't want to be crass, and this is so like on the nose, but like I remember when actually you and I were in grad school. I don't think we were in the same class, but it's like maybe someone farted and you know that they were struggling with that. Like
Oh,
that's a horrible
yeah.
time. Like having a pimple for my son deals with that, right? Like he's got like Accutane or whatever. Like having a pimple is an embarrassing thing, right? But with embarrassment, there is a start and an end, right? So it's not some complete, it's not like about your whole self, right? And like shame involves
Right.
like your whole self, your identity. This is more like a moment in time where where the chips
And
fell and things
it's
didn't
it's
really work
interesting
out in your
though.
favor.
I feel like I've over time, I feel like I've kind of like intertwine them to some extent because sometimes embarrassment can cause you to have feelings about yourself and I
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think I have a hard time separating embarrassment from shame because some of the things that embarrass me I probably tap into things that I also have shame about, right?
The word
Is
we were
that a
looking for
possible?
like 10 minutes ago was confidence. But yes, I can see how that would totally work. Like people are judging you for your tripping, for your pimple, for your
Or if,
like
like if I have this feeling that I'm just a very awkward person and I
Mhm.
every time I talk to someone I just come off as very awkward and I actually avoid talking to people in public like I remember anytime I would go to like a former workplace, I'd be so nervous to go there because I didn't want to like have to do small talk because in my mind I can't small talk. I'm very awkward, all that stuff. So I just avoid, right? And I'm like, that's probably my shame from, but like I'm sure it's come from embarrassing moments that have built on
Mhm.
shame, but I don't know where it stems from completely. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I feel
that's
like I'm,
interesting.
I feel like I'm not even totally like I haven't unearthed all that. I don't know if I want to.
Wait, you want to hit us with something else?
No, I mean I haven't unearthed like the root of like why I have that like
Oh, okay.
that
All right.
feeling about myself. But I always have as since a kid.
Well,
Like
when we talk about the therapeutic approach to some of this, maybe something will trigger and we
sure.
can,
So how to know if you experience shame? Here's some signs maybe that you might have. Looking down and avoiding eye contact with people, talking in a soft voice or completely staying quiet, feeling like you don't want to move, but you can't leave, fearing that you'll say the wrong thing or look stupid, wishing you could shrink into walls, feeling like you can't be your true self. Those
yeah.
are those are like some symptoms of shame, I guess. Why does shame exist? So, again, as you mentioned earlier, you alluded to earlier, it's another evolutionary or survival emotion.
hmm
It molds behavior to allow people to coexist and adhere to societal norms, rules, or laws, right? And
So
much
can I
like,
stop you right there for a
yeah,
second?
go ahead.
So like, I guess that sentence is as if to say, like we kind of talked about in the beginning, what if someone had no shame?
Right. If they're overly confident, then they won't care as much about
hmm
how they come across, how they, if they offend people, if they just do things that go against what the societal norms are. They're
Right.
just
And
going to
if
do
people,
what they want to do.
yeah, and if people behave that way and they just do whatever they want to do without any shame, then society can't exist because you'll be like people will be cheating on each
Oh,
other, people will be stealing, people
right.
will be, hurting each other's feelings. There won't be any
In
community,
small
there won't be any
doses, shame is
passion.
caring about others.
That's it.
Shame is
Caring about
is
what others think is important.
yeah.
Caring
It
too
is
much
like
about what other people think is, you
it
know, maladaptive.
so shame for I wonder if we were to do a study on most people with social anxiety, which is
Hmm.
all about that fear of being judged. We actually haven't done an episode about social anxiety specifically. We've just done anxiety. Maybe we should. Um, it's all about being judged, that perception of being judged, or that fear of being judged. Shame is probably the core of most social anxiety, I would assume,
Hmm.
because
Beautiful, beautiful connection.
in order to have that caring about people, there's probably a thing that you're shameful about that you're worried that they're going to judge. That'd be an interesting study to do.
Yeah.
Correlation between shame and
And then
social
how do you
anxiety.
expose yourself to that thing that you're most shameful of yourself in order to kind of like heal?
Work through, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exposure therapy or some sort. So much like depression, anxiety, and most other uncomfortable emotions, a little bit of shame isn't bad, as we mentioned. It can help teach us lessons on humility, boundaries, and just how our behavior impacts others. Like I said, shame is essentially it's caring about others, right? It's caring
Hmm.
for others. It's caring for yourself and how you're able to interact with others. On the flip, though, on the flippity flip, too
Hmm.
much shame can be rather inhabilitating in creating a happy life because you are constantly navigating around your shame, right? You're avoiding situations that could potentially result in shame, which probably is unavoidable because of the how strong that belief is about your shame. I don't know.
I
Like,
don't know
can
either.
you have a happy life if you carry around significant amounts of shame? I don't know. You could probably have a semblance of a happy life, but can you have a full happy life? You're dictated by external things,
So maybe even showing that to people is a part of the process. Like, hey, look, you're living your life based on other people's thoughts and opinions of you. And so
right?
which is kind of like identityless,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You're not your true self, which is never going to be a fulfilling feeling when you're constantly navigating the world to blend in with others, not stand out, you know, not show your true self. You're never going to feel completely satisfied.
It's almost like when people like have that like epiphany, it's like, well, I'm gonna do this. I don't care what anybody thinks. That's a great sentence. It's also a terrible sentence, right? So that's like pointing out
100%.
right there where it's like shame is both good and bad. And like anything else, it's like Aristotle was right all along with the golden mean. Balance. How do we
Right.
keep coming back to it? It really is.
And I know we did a lot of talk in previous episodes about reality TV, and I won't get too much into it. But like, if you think about what's good reality TV, it's lack of shame.
Hmm.
And that message then gets sent on to everyone in the world
Yeah.
that this is entertainment, this is what gets you money and
Overconfidence,
celebrity.
hubris, right?
Yeah,
These terrible
right.
things.
So we do emphasize lack of shame, and we do now, and we've adopted these like monikers and these like ideas of like just be yourself 1000% and don't care what anybody thinks and all these like that, all these things that really don't reflect maybe like the benefits of having that
Mm.
small amount of shame.
Yes.
So consequences of shame, having ongoing sense of shame can damage one's self-esteem. As you can imagine, it can negatively impact their relationships as well as their mental and physical health. Um, Someone with shame internalizes and embodies the negative emotions, believing that there is something wrong with them, and they're not able to believe or trust in themselves. And what kind of happy person can't believe or trust in themselves? Not one, right? It
Well,
can
because
result in
ultimately, right? Like we have to believe in ourselves we have to believe in our values. We have to believe in ourselves to make the choices, and without that ability, we can't kind of become,
right. Would
you
you
know.
ever take a leap of faith and like take a job of a risky job or a
Mhm.
hard job or involve yourself in a like a difficult project or go to grad school if you didn't believe in yourself? No.
Yeah.
So I mean you have to believe in yourself to some capacity in order to do anything that's worthwhile.
Hmm.
um, it can result in depression, anger, anxiety, as well as present as timidness, worthlessness, hypersensitivity, social anxiety, and loneliness. But also, someone who holds on to shame may use anger to hide the shame and avoid painful feelings, as well as act defensively when criticized, which you can completely imagine, right?
Yeah.
And they're angry that, they use the anger to kind of overcompensate because they don't know a better way to do it, right? So shame is gonna hate using this word. Shame is toxic in relationships.
Hmm.
But, but this is actually like really toxic because it like seeps into the relationship, right? And it leads to judgment, anger, passive aggressiveness, and it makes it difficult to trust a partner or remove the motivation to meet a new partner at all. So you may also like stay stuck in a relationship, right? That maybe isn't worthwhile to you because you don't think you could do anything else.
Mm.
The ultimate message that like, I can send is like, how can you believe that someone loves you if you don't feel like you're worthy of love, right? If you're unlovable. So if that's how you view yourself, you're never going to fully allow someone to love you.
Right. You're gonna keep everyone's at like an arm's length,
Yeah.
right? Because yeah, I'm not enough. This is eventually gonna end. I don't believe this. So
You're
Dave,
cheating on me, Greg.
with who? I'm not. So listen, how do we treat this thing, Dave? How do we get to the bottom of this?
Yeah.
So the hardest part of this whole thing is gonna be, identifying the shame because like we talked about, it could be unconscious and it could be so ingrained in who we are. It could have something that developed when we were like
Right.
shame as like a coping strategy when you're a kid. So you know what I mean? So that you behave a certain way or
Right.
whatever. Really tough.
We all cling to examples, right? Or
Yeah,
like situations, but that might not be the core or the root of it. That's just
right.
a product of it or an example of how it manifested. It's not the root.
So getting to the bottom of it, and maybe getting to the bottom of it and finding out exactly where it came from might be impossible, but that does not mean we can't sort of address how shame is kind of forcing us to act, and we can kind of change that behavior and maybe develop some confidence, which would help out quite a bit.
Yeah.
So self-compassion is going to be the first step too, right? Like, exercises may include writing a compassionate letter to yourself or just being like kinder to yourself, nicer to yourself. I know that sounds so kitschy, but you know, the way we talk to ourselves is wildly important. We kind of forget that. So research, shows that self-criticism and anxiety are really helped by like writing a letter to yourself and pointing out some of the good things about yourself. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be as because to a lot of people that might sound a bit much, writing a letter to yourself, but just like listing, hey, like let's list your strengths. Like what are you good at? Like what are your interests and what might other people say about you? There's tons of ways to kind of identify what's good about you versus
Right.
what's not, right?
Yeah, just journal. I mean, everybody journals these days.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, like and, like why are you like what makes you lovable? What would make you a good partner to someone? Make you a good friend? Like these kinds of tools.
What makes you a great cuddler?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, why are you always the little spoon? You can be the big spoon. You
You
know
you
what I mean?
have big
Like things
spoon
like that.
energy. Come on.
Try it, see what happens, right? So, another approach is learning, to forgive yourself and kind of be, let some of the past go, I think. Therapy is always going to help, right? Building, because you know what? Therapy essentially one of the best tools that therapy has is building self-esteem. I think that's true. I think that's very useful.
Yeah, I just thought of something.
What's that?
I bet you've never been Little Spoon.
No,
It's because you're masking
I know. I get it. I got to
with
try
your
it. So I need
masculinity.
to go back in the other direction, right? Because it's
You
all
need
about
to,
balance.
Greg.
I
You're
will,
you're lovable. You could be Little Spoon.
you know what I'm gonna do, dude?
Someone could let you. You know.
I'm gonna be the little spoon
Yeah.
and I'm gonna reflect and maybe write about it.
Right. There you
How, you know
go.
what I mean? How I felt. Probably felt weird,
Probably
but that's all right,
give it a shot.
right? I like that. So, like therapy is important again for like self-esteem, but to, I don't know, we don't always have to do this in therapy, but we may. A lot of times we do. It can be really important to explore the past and identify like events in your life that are at the root of the shame. Um, you know, taming that inner critic is something that we all really need to work
Hard.
on
It's
and,
hard.
focus more on like what we're good at versus what our weaknesses are. I always tell people all the time, everyone, not everyone, lots of people live their lives based on what could go wrong versus what they actually want to do. And that's
Mhm.
something, we just kind of need to take a more realistic approach, a realistic snapshot of who we really are, which means count like some of that shame is going to be in there, but also like what else? It's not all shame.
Right.
My guess would be if you care so much about what other people think to the point where like you're really struggling with shame, you're probably a really good person,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So that's something that's really easy to forget. Um, and also talking about different domains of life and what may be contributing to the shame, like the people you're around, the jobs that you have, and maybe there's something you could do to mitigate and like monitor the progress that you're going to try to go through. So like if you're in a job that you're not great at, or people aren't treating you great at, maybe it's like I, you don't have to accept that. You can, identify what you're good at and work towards that because I think that's finding what you're good at, whether that's employment or anything else, is really helpful in overcoming shame and I honestly I do like the connection to social anxiety because I think that's really in a lot of ways what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. It feels like it's, I mean, when you're talking social anxiety, like we said, it's that fear of judgment from others, which seems to be what shame evolves to after you have that, whatever that shameful core belief is about yourself.
Yeah.
So then it's just like, I don't want to continue to be judged because it's going to make me feel
And
terrible about myself.
honestly, like when I said like forgive yourself, that sounds kind of like, but you might be having some shame around something. Maybe it was guilt initially. Maybe you did something. Maybe you didn't do something, and um, you've kind of let it fester for a really long time. And it's become shame, and maybe you need to reevaluate that situation. I was a different person then. Had I gotten the opportunity, and if you do get the opportunity, I would behave differently. Like I mean, all that stuff, right? I really do think shame, all these sort of, you know, I don't want to say character deficits, but they do come from a place of are you being someone you admire? It's literally that simple, Dave, right? Like, because you imagine yourself in the same place, in the same, because embarrassment, we talked about being a little, let's go back to that bully. And let's say like in the past, you saw something or saw someone being, you're really kind of like, or maybe you even joined in and said, yeah, they're this or they're that, and you didn't really mean it. And as soon as it came out, you're
Right.
like, oh my God, I can't, like, I feel so
Right.
bad about that. Think about how maybe embarrassing it would have been to be in that moment and say something like, "Hey, like that's messed up. Like let's not," or whatever it is, just something simple. You might feel embarrassed, but you might also feel it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
Proud, confident, strong. You'd sleep good that night, maybe. I don't know. There's something powerful about following your values, and I say that now as a 43-year-old not as someone who's done it their entire life. Like we all kind of had those moments where we could have and didn't, and you have to forgive yourself for that and say, I'm changing and I'm trying to be better going
I'd
forward.
I'd rather be the old man in the wedding singer who goes to punch him, but then his punch doesn't hurt. And he goes, I used to be a lot stronger when I was younger. I'd rather
Yeah,
be that guy than not, do anything at all. Right. Because
totally. It's
that
almost
guy
like
was the man.
that, dude. Yeah, and it's almost making like to be hyperbolic. It's like even in like all these the best movies, the best heroes, right? Sometimes they even die, but they die well, like die like fighting for something like so important. um I don't know, being willing to like put it all on the line um for your values, and no one's asking you to do that,
Right.
but
Right.
to kind of as a, I don't know, almost like protective covering of shame, like maybe use last week's episode, moral development, and stick to some of that stuff, right?
I was just thinking about shame, and I know when we did the dream episode, I had brought up how like I'll have those dreams where I'll be fighting someone and I have no strength, and I just
Hmm.
thought of that because of that wedding singer scene. Um, And actually, like if I think about that dream and I think about that fear that like, all right, or maybe it's based in shame. Maybe it's like, oh, I feel weak. I'm a weak person. Like maybe that's something that I felt when I was younger, and that's kind of the what's manifested into. I'm a weak person. If I can't, I could never win a fight. I could never hurt anyone. I'm too weak, right? And then if a situation came up where like I needed to go into action and help somebody, that fear of me being weak would be the thing I would have to try to overcome.
Hmm.
Right. And my shame would be like, you can't do it. You're a weakling. You wouldn't, you'll just embarrass yourself. You're no worth. There's no worth in even trying. So
But like you
overcoming
like your
that,
guy, it's like I'm doing it anyway.
right. I got to do it anyway though. Cause if I don't, it's gonna go against my values. I want to protect others. I want to help others when needed, and me not doing it will just double down on my shame because now I let someone down. I didn't live up to my core beliefs and my core values,
Hmm.
and I'm weak. I'm still weak, right? I didn't prove anything to myself. I let myself talk myself out of it. I'm still weak. And just think about how that just like
It's
just takes
empowering.
over somebody,
Yeah.
all that negativity. And if you can overcome that, even if it doesn't go direct exactly how you hope, you've at least not allowed yourself to your fears to dictate your actions.
The fact that you think it's gonna go wrong and you do it anyway, that's what courage is,
Right. Right.
you know?
It's not caring about that. It's like
Yeah,
knowing this is the right thing to do.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
That's the hero's approach.
Right. Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was
All right.
interesting, huh?
Okay. That was I think that's a good way to end it too, because I'm sure there's like 1,000 more conversations that can come out of shame, or maybe there's not. Maybe we've, kind of just explained it and that's it. But if anybody has anything that they would want to share about this, please feel free to do so. I would love to hear more people's thoughts about shame. I don't think there's a lot of discussions about it, or at least enough. And a great place to do that is on our Patreon, because then other people can chime in and talk about it. So take a look, join our Patreon, free, paid, whatever. You can still join in the community. We'd love to see it. And yeah, thanks for listening. Leave a rating or a review if you're listening somewhere, and we will see you next week. Thank you, guys
All
and
right.
girls.
Thank you.
Didn't mean to be genderist. Everybody. Thank you, everybody, is what I meant to say. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody, have a great day. See you next week. Bye.
All right. Bye.